My name is Jimmy Smith. I'm with the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. I'm a career navigator, and I work at Mondawmin Mall. It's called the Reentry Center. Today, I want to talk a little bit about resumes and why they're important and how you can increase your chances of finding employment. And so I've got a little PowerPoint here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So as I was stating, I work at the Mayor's Office of Employment Development at the REC. It's the Reentry Center. So Mondawmin Mall on the 3rd floor. We offer a wide variety of services. We cater to people who are returning citizens. So we have specific programming and funding specific to help people with that are returning home. So come and see us so we can help you out. So let's talk a little bit about resumes. So why do I need a great resume in the first place? And so there's lots of different reasons. One of them is just to grab the attention of the employer. Hey, I'm interested in your job. I have some of the skills that you're looking for. It sells your strongest skills and accomplishments. Okay, so you always want to remember that. It's a great opportunity for you to do that. And you control this information. So you always want to put positive things on a resume or things that's going to help you or increase your chances of obtaining employment because you control this. It shows how much you're a match for the position or project. And we'll talk a little bit more about targeted resumes maybe in the second round, how to target your resume specifically. It's a way for you to communicate with the applicant tracking system. And that's the most important thing. What is the applicant tracking system? It is, well, literally everything, everyone today, all jobs require some type of applicant tracking system because you have to apply online. And any system that's an online application system is an applicant tracking system. So if we go to the next slide, I'll go into a little bit more into detail about applicant tracking systems and how they work. So like I said, today, if anybody says that they don't take a paper application, that they want you to go online and fill out their online application, you are entering your data into an applicant tracking system. And it's beneficial for them because it keeps everyone organized. The data that's in there is data that you put in. So if the social security number is off, that's not on them because they didn't enter it right. They're assuming that all of the data that's entered is accurate to your best ability. So one of the beneficial things, or maybe just the opposite about these applicant tracking software systems, is that it has eliminated people reading resumes. HR folks don't read them anymore. They let the software determine who's a good fit for the job. And how does that work? Well, you've heard before keywords. Keywords are the important words in the job application that they want to see in your resume. That's going to tell them that you're fit for the job. So here's some reasons why applicant tracking systems don't work. They fail to use the employer's chosen keyword. So sometimes you might say that you are a secretary and they're looking for an administrative assistant. Then that keyword difference might just exclude you from that. Not every applicant tracking system figures out that, oh yeah, secretary also means admin, right? Sometimes the system doesn't recognize unusual fonts that you may use or specific formatting. Maybe you have a table in your resume. I don't know why you have a table in your resume, but you might. And so applicant tracking software systems just don't recognize that. Some people like to use icons or graphics. Graphics mess up applicant tracking systems because they don't know how to read that. So that's some of the reasons why this can be, it can work against you, right? Some of these systems in the software. So you've got to understand what they're looking for, what's going to be beneficial for you, and so that's going to help you to get that job interview, because that's the whole purpose of this resume, is to get the interview. So let's go to the next slide. So how do you use the words? What are the right words to use? How do I say what I want to say and still please the employer? When people come to me at my resume workshop and I tell them that if you really want that job, you need to create a resume specifically for that job. And they look at me like I have two heads. And because it seems like it's a lot of work to do, but it's not. If you really have the tools then it really makes things easier. So this is my favorite place to go, onetonline.org. It is a website that's developed by the Department of Labor. And they're the jobs people. So they catalog jobs, they categorize jobs, they organize the workforce. And so if you're looking for specific things to say, don't take it from me. Don't try to make it up yourself. I go right to ONET. And up at the top right-hand corner is a little box. You type in whatever it is, secretary, and it's going to give you the task of a secretary. And so the easiest thing to do is just see what they say and mimic that. Why is that important? Because this is industry standard jargon. So when you go to apply to a job, the HR department has made a job description, and it's normally industry standard jargon. And so the best way for you to match those keywords, because guess what, where they got that industry standard jargon, the Department of Labor. So by using this website, it's also the Department of Labor's verbiage, you're in the right ballpark. 9 times out of 10, you're saying the right things. And so this is a great place to go. And when you go in, you're just going to go look for, you're going to see what the employer's asking for. You're going to look how ONET phrases it. And you're just going to type it into your resume. If you're pretty good and you can copy and paste, this will be a breeze. So applicant tracking systems are not scary if you know what to feed it. And what I would tell you is feed it the information that comes out of ONET, because that's exactly what they want to see. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Some of the things you also want to mention on your resume, outside of the day-to-day task, if I did this and I moved that and I talked to people and I did, are transferable skills. More and more companies today are looking for people who have these skills because they're going to train you to do everything else. So what they want to know is that you have good communication skills, right? And that you are a good critical thinker, that you can manage yourself without somebody telling you what to do every minute of the day, and that you have good interpersonal skills. So again, you want to highlight these things. Sometimes you might want to have a skills section in your resume where you just list the skills. And for sure, I know this is the resume workshop, but resumes and interviewing go hand in hand. When you get interviewed, you will be interviewed from these things that you list in your resume. And so what I would tell you is, with all of these things, especially transferable skills, have a story to go with it. And I'm not trying to turn this into a interviewing workshop, but there's a thing that I do in interviewing. It's called STAR answers: situation, task, action, and result. And so when you are in an interview, someone's going to look at your resume and say, oh, I see you have communication skills. Can you tell me about that? What you need is a story that's going to communicate that you have good communication skills. So you're going to say situation. There's a time that I worked at Baskin Robbins and the task, and my boss asked me to reorganize the ice cream in a certain manner. And action, I decided that we should put them alphabetically because that would make sense to everyone, because they could just figure it out alphabetically. And as a result, so that's my STAR: situation, task, action, result. The result was we were a faster crew because we could find the ice cream faster. Mm-hmm. Always have a story to corroborate these things that you put on your resume, okay? And so just don't haphazardly put them on there because Jimmy said to do it. If you have these things, you need a story that's going to go along with it, because somebody might call you out on that and they want to know more about, tell me about your self-management. Tell me more about your interpersonal skills. So transferable skills, great, list them, but be ready to defend them with a good story. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so how do I apply to a job? The first thing that you do when you see a job that you like is that you want to read the job requirements closely. The entire job posting. Employers look for how well you follow directions right out of the gate. If they say they want a resume and a cover letter and you send them a resume, you've already failed, okay? Read the job posting and see exactly what they're looking for to make sure that you can give them what they're asking for. The second reason why you want to do that is that job titles, they might call again, a secretary and admin or something like that. And you want to make sure that you are using the same verbiage that they're using. So if they call them a administrative assistant, you want to be an administrative assistant. If they are warehouse worker, you might want to say warehouse worker. If they're material handler, you might want to say material handler. Try to use the same job title that they particularly use for that job. Pay attention to the keywords and repeated phrases. Anytime that they repeat something, it's important because a job requirement, they don't have a lot of space. So if they choose to list something and they list it more than once, it's very important to them, and you need to make sure that you put it in your resume, okay? Another thing that you could do is look for clues in the company's values. Where do you find the company's values? If you really want this job, you should be researching that company by going to their website, reading the About Us page, and finding out what's important to them. What might be important to them is friendship. And so you might want to mention friendship or lean on friendship, or maybe a sense of community is important to them. So when you talk to them or as you write your resume or your cover letter, you want to lean on how much community is important to you. Find their core values. People want to hire people like them. Okay. So the more time you spend on their website, the more you get clued into their language and what they say and how they say it. Do they have a sense of humor? Any of those things are important so that you could take extra notice and try to separate yourself and be more like that person that they are. You may not fit a job 100%, but you should have most of the skills that they require. So, there is no perfect employee. Don't be discouraged if you say, oh, well, I could do 8 of these things, but 2 of these things I can't do. Again, if you have the majority of the skills that they're looking for, make sure you highlight those things and bring attention to it. Don't bring attention to the things that you don't have. You can always talk through that when you get to the interview. As you review any section of a job description, keep in mind that the most important items that they list are going to be shown first. So I always like to equate this to a package. If you have a bag of chips or a candy bar or soda, the ingredients on the back are listed in order of prominence. Whatever's shown first, there's more of that than whatever's shown last. Job descriptions are somewhat similar to that as well. Whatever is shown first is probably more important than something that's shown at the bottom. So utilize that, understand that. Maybe I don't have these few things at the bottom, but I have these at the top. If you have the ones at the top, those are the most important. Make sure you highlight and accentuate that in your resume and your cover letter. Let's go to the next slide. We'll talk about what the perfect resume looks like. So what does a perfect resume look like? So the first thing is that the name is legible and easy to see. You want to make it easy for someone to hire you. Okay, you don't want them to have to search for your name or search for what you do or how to find you with your contact information. You want your email address right up at the front, and please have a professional email address. Okay, I think one of the things that we do in life, we make our email address so we can communicate to friends and family, so we can sign up for all of these social media sites. And at no point do we think, I'm going to use this to find work. And then that time comes. And then you have to use that same resume, cutie on duty 32, right? And then now it's not so appropriate for a job. So what I tell people is, and that's fine, keep cutie on duty, that's great, that's how everybody can communicate with you, but create a resume specifically just for finding work. My name is Jimmy Smith. I can go right now to Gmail and find Jimmy Smith Employment at gmail.com. And then boom, I have have an email address that's professional enough for me to use to find employment. Okay. And it's not my personal, cat lover, 16. So create a professional email address. That's going to be very helpful. One of the things that you might want to have on a perfect resume is a list of the skills. So that way you could satisfy these applicant tracking systems. And I would say have a skills section, because as you apply for different jobs, you might want to eliminate this skill and replace it with this skill, because now they want to see this skill. Whereas at Job X, they wanted to see communication, and then job Y, they want management. So I want to replace those things. So if you have a skills section, you could just swap out the keywords very quickly. All right. It's like a shortcut to customizing your resume for each employer. Number 4, you always want to list your most recent work history first. Work chronologically from there. Typically, employers want to know what you've done the past 10 years. Okay. Anything beyond 10 years, you fall into the trap of giving the employer too much information. And we can do that. A resume can do that. I had a guy just today that I was working with that he said, I've been driving, he's a CDL driver. I've been driving trucks since 1980.
Oof, age.
Clearly, we don't want to put that on the resume. And so, and that surprised him because he thought, hey, I've got a wealth of experience, let me tell you. And sometimes employers see different things with 40 years of work experience. They see a worker who might be retiring soon. So they might pass over someone like that. They really only want to know what you've done the past 10 years. You can stretch that out to 15 years. Once you get to 20 years, I would highly recommend that you just cut off that work history or go to a different format of resume, maybe a functional resume where it talks about your skill set and not necessarily when you did it. And that might be more beneficial to you. But once you get past that, employers, for whatever reason, I don't want to just broad brush all employers, but they like a younger workforce. So keep it within 10, 15 years. Another thing that is just pleasing to the eye is just consistency. If you're going to list a job and you're going to talk about the things that you did on that job and you did that in 3 bullets, and then you talk about a job that you did before that job and you talk about the things that you did there, the task, use 3 bullets. Keep it consistent, keep it organized. It just looks better. It just feels better. It just reads better. There's a rhythm to it. And HR people like that consistency. It just shows organization. And just as humans, we like things to be organized. So always try to be consistent with what you do, how you line things up, how often you use bullets, how many bullets you use per each job, or whatever. If you don't even use bullets, however you do it, try to keep it consistent. Another thing that will be beneficial in a perfect resume is make sure you use statistics. Employers, they want to quantify things. They love quantifying. They're business people. They love to quantify things. And if you can mention that you help create a process that saved 20% efficiency, they love that because then they can equate that to what you can do for them. So I don't care what it is. You increased the number of items that you moved at the warehouse every quarter, whatever it is. Put numbers, statistics, any type of things like that. HR people love statistics. Wherever you can quantify your work, do so and put it in there. Okay, so I mentioned before about my gentleman who said he's been working for 40 years driving trucks. Also be careful about putting your dates in education. Hey, I graduated from high school in 1990. Okay, so what does that mean? That means Jimmy's getting up there, right? So be careful of that. You go through this whole thing. Jimmy said only put 10 or 15 years so they don't know how old I am. And then you put the date that you graduated. So be careful. What I tell people is, again, once you reach that 15, 20-year mark, still say that you have your high school diploma, still list any type of certifications that you received or degrees or anything like that. Just eliminate the dates. Okay, we don't need dates after 15, 20 years. And I'm telling you these things because we control the narrative on a resume. There are going to be times where I don't control the narrative when you fill out an application, and they're going to ask you these things. They're going to ask you the date of birth, and they're going to ask you things that you're just going to have to divulge that information. On a resume, we control it. So I'm not in favor of putting anything that's going to be on here that might have someone eliminate you right away. All right, at least do the work of going into the applicant tracking system and reading about me and getting to know me before you just make that determination. So be careful about dates in education. If you have awards, skills, or interests, include that. And especially if those things align with the company's values. Maybe the company is into wildlife, and so are you. You're a bird watcher. You might want to put that on there because that's going to go a long way. You're going to find these things out again by researching the company, going to their webpage, and typically most companies will have an about us section, and you want to go there and find out everything that they do and everything that you want to try to attach to and say, hey, I'm just like you. The last thing I'm gonna tell you about the perfect resume is keep it to 2 pages. If you can make it all fit on 1 page, that's fine. But if not 1 page, 2 pages is fine. A lot of people just try to smush everything into 1 page. Sometimes you have a real story to tell and you might need 2 pages. My only thing about that is if you're going to go to 2 pages, the second page needs to be longer than just a half a sheet. Okay, so it's not just like 1 sheet and then a little bit of leftover on the second page. If you're going to commit to the second sheet, commit to the second sheet and then really flush it out. And where are you going to get the verbiage to flush it out? onetonline.org. It's my favorite place to go, onetonline.org. Okay, next slide. So I mentioned this earlier, and I will get into a little bit more detail next time we meet, but targeting the job is very important. And so it's a process to it. It's really not hard. It's not rocket science. You really just want to see what, a lot of times what gets in our way is what we want to say, right? But Mr. Employer, let me tell you about, but Mr. Employer, let me tell you this. And they don't, I don't want to say they don't care, but if you really want to know what they care about, they're telling you. It's on the flyer. That's what they really care about. And so you want to go through and read what they're looking for, the requirements, the duties. You make sure that if you've done those things in the past, that you can list them out accurately in your resume. Okay. And don't just assume that this is for a job as a lifeguard. Don't just assume that because you were a lifeguard, that they're going to assume that you did have CPR training. Because if you don't list it, they're not going to assume that. Okay. So make sure that you list those things on there that they ask for that you actually have. Sometimes the skills that the employer needs or asking for, you've done, but not necessarily in the same vein as this. So for example, this is for a position as a lifeguard. Maybe one of the things that they ask for is communication. And maybe you were a customer service rep at the Horseshoe Casino. And so maybe I wasn't a lifeguard, but I'm very familiar with customer service. And so you want to accentuate that. You still want to list it. You just want to see what skills they want. And you just want to make sure you list it regardless of what job they came from. So remember, a computer will determine your fit for a job based upon what experience you share. Don't assume that a person is going to connect the dots because that's just not how we do things anymore. A computer is pretty much black and white, cut and dried. Either you qualify or you don't. So make sure that you put those things in there that's going to help you to get qualified for it. Always be truthful, never lie, but never sell your skills short as well. Make sure that you highlight what you've done, but never fabricate anything, because the employer, they're going to want to know, they're going to want proof. So you don't want to put yourself in that situation. All right, next slide. Okay, so accounting for your time. So I work with, again, a lot of people that are returning citizens, and the hardest thing for them is to figure out gaps in employment, right? I'm missing this gap of time, I'm missing this gap of time. How do I account for my time? So there's several things. Like I said, the first thing is that employers really want to know what you've done the past 10 years, 15 years at the max, okay? And so if you were incarcerated during that period of time, you want to list what you did while you were inside. And so maybe you were inside and you worked in food service. So you're going to put down that you were a food service worker for the state of Maryland. In actuality, that's, again, back to the not fabricating things. That is what a position that you held. It wasn't a very profitable position, but it is a position that you held for the state of Maryland. What I try to explain to people is that we try to present the data like you're a blue shirt, as if you go home every day. Again, not lying, just presenting the information in a way that makes you look on par with everyone else. And so if you worked for the state of Maryland, whatever it was, whether it was janitorial or landscaping or food service, you're going to account for that time and you're going to list it on there that you work for the state of Maryland. And you're going to list the task because, again, the whole purpose of the resume is, hey, I've done these skills that you need, Mr. Employer. So the whole purpose of listing this job is so I can say, yes, I know how to use a floor buffer. Yes, I know how to cook foods or prep meals or serve food to the public or whatever it is that you're applying for next. You always want to account for that time that you were in there. Another thing that I tell people too, when they have gaps of employment, because work has been sporadic, is you always work for yourself. If you are, in between jobs, but you've cut grass, list yourself as a landscaper. And maybe you're not the busiest landscaper, but you want to list that you are accounting for your time with something that you're doing during that period of time. I equate it to when you list a job, you don't say I was a part-time cashier. You just say I was a cashier. And so how much time you've done with that job is not relevant. You just want to list that you were a cashier and these are the tasks that I did as a cashier. So if you've done work under the table for friends or family, my name is Jimmy Smith. I might just list it as Jimmy Smith Enterprises. I'm a freelance contractor and I've done these various things. So you always work for yourself. In a pinch, you always work for yourself. So if you can list some things that you did, that would be a great way to account for your time. Next is a little bit about cover letters. And so a lot of people say, Jimmy, do I need a cover letter? And my answer is yes. Always want to have a cover letter. As a matter of fact, there's a kit that you need to have, resume, cover letter, references. Every employer may not ask for them, but don't let them ask for it and then you not have it, right? So just have it first. And then if they need it, they're going to ask for it. And then you're more inclined to give it to them if you already have one than if you didn't. And you're like, oh, I got to go make a cover letter. And nobody's going to do that. So make a cover letter. After you finish making your resume, make your cover letter. Make it look like your resume. My example here is awful because I went through the whole process of showing you the perfect resume, and then I show you the cover letter and it doesn't match the resume, but my references do. So we'll come to references in a second. But the whole purpose of a cover letter is to introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Jimmy Smith. I'm a warehouse professional with a forklift certification, right? And then you want to talk about it if you're interested. I'm sending you my resume because I'm interested in your material handler position. Okay, so everything that you would think it would be. You want to introduce yourself, you want to tell them why you're sending your information in, and you want to draw attention to your resume. As noted in your job posting, you wanted someone with 5 years of experience working in a cold warehouse. I worked at Northeast Foods for 12 years as a material handler there, and I thought that I'd be a great fit for this job. All right, so you just want to make it easier for them. Nowhere else on your resume do you have the opportunity to tell a story, to tell a sentence about who you are. You had the task that you did, but here's an opportunity for you to say, hey, Mr. Employer, here's why I'm perfect for your job. Create a cover letter. It'll be so beneficial. And again, it just makes it easier for someone to hire you. And that's what you want to do. Make it easy for HR people to hire you. Often, the cover letter is the first thing that the employer will read. So it's, again, a great way for you to introduce yourself. And another thing that's important about a cover letter that people forget is that it ties all of your skills together. Though, Mr. Employer, I have never managed people creating websites, I have managed other types of software development, and I've also created websites. So even though what they asked for, I didn't exactly fit per what they said, I can show them why I could do the job because I have this skill set married with this skill set. And sometimes HR people need help with pulling that together. So this is a great way for you to do that. All right, and then so I mentioned references. That's my next slide. And so again, this matches my resume because you want it to all match. You want someone to look and say, oh, okay, this all goes together. So you create a references. Please don't put at the bottom of your resume references available upon request, as if they requested and you would say no. That I think that's funny. So you're going to not put that, save that line for something else, and you're going to have a reference sheet. And when they ask for references, they're already ready to go. These are 3 people that you've already talked to who can vouch for whether it's your skill set, whether it's your personality, whether it's your work history, maybe a combination of the 3. A lot of times I tell people, we job seekers have between 4 and 7 job lives. Okay, what's a job life? Well, I did warehouse work, I did food service, I did construction, I did manufacturing. 4 different job lives. In theory, you're going to need a resume for each of those job lives. You cannot be all 4 things simultaneously, because what ends up happening is you end up being none of the above. Okay. So you want to create a resume that kind of goes into the specifics of each of those. And then people say, well, Jimmy, do I put my food service work on my manufacturing resume? You sure do. But when you talk about what you did in food service on your manufacturing resume, you're going to talk about things that correspond to manufacturing, following a process, maybe health and safety. Again, things that are going to be relevant to that industry. And you would know that. I say all that to say, back to references. If you could have references that kind of correlate or correspond to your different industries too, that would be ideal. So here are my warehouse references, because these are people that I work with in warehouse. And here are my food service references, because these are people that work with me at the restaurant that I worked at. One of the things that I would just tell you about references, so that's ideal. Like the minimum is just to have 1 sheet of references, right? Please talk to your references. Please tell them or remind them that they're your references. And more so than that, remind them of the picture that you're painting of yourself, right? So maybe I'm applying for a job and I'm trying to be a short order cook at a place, and I want someone to know that that I'm very fast, I have really good knife skills. I'm going to make sure that all my references, hey, don't forget to, lean on my knife skills. They're very big on someone with cutting skills. So make sure that you educate your references on what to say about you. Educate them that they are your reference, that someone will be calling them, and the things that they need to say. I can't tell you how many times I've called references and they say, who? What? Well, I don't know who that is. Wait a minute, what? And they have no idea what's going on. So just a word to the wise. Just because you think someone would be great, speak about you positively, I would just say validate that. Okay, call them, contact them, make sure. And then you're just going to share their name, number, and email address. Okay, so I've talked for a bit. I'm just going to wrap things up a little bit for tonight. Some of the things that I want to say and bringing this to a close: multiple resumes. Okay, so you're going to need a basic resume for each job life that you have, whether that's warehouse or safety, security, construction, whatever it is. And these are basic resumes. So yes, this sounds like a lot of work, but again, ONET Online is your key, because they're going to have all the verbiage for you, what to say. Craft a basic resume for each of your different job lives, and then you can tweak them per the job that you're applying to once you have that, okay? Be sure to highlight the skills and tasks performed related to the job requirements. Again, people get excited and they want to tell the story that they want to tell. They don't care about that. They're telling you what they want to know. It's in the job description. Anything that you list outside of the job description can help you, and it can work against you. So just be careful of that, okay? Keywords, keywords, keywords. Use the same terms and activities listed in the job posting. There's my example of secretary and administrative assistant. Make sure if they call it administrative assistant that you're going to call it administrative assistant, okay? And you include keywords and phrases in your cover letter. All right. The cover letter is a great place to, again, expand upon what it is that you're saying and what type of a fit you are. Try to fill in those empty time gaps by listing volunteer work, work that you did freelance, that you did for yourself. And if you have too many dates that are too many gaps of employment, then my recommendation is don't put dates on it. Okay. Again, this is a resume. When you get to the application and you're filling out an application online, an employer is going to ask you for things and you're going to have to give it to them at that point. But we control this. If you have too many gaps of employment, don't put dates. Okay. And then they'll have to find it somewhere else, but it won't be because you gave it to them on the resume. And then file the postings instruction to the letter. All right. Send what they ask for. And just that, if they don't ask for your transcript, don't send your transcript. Okay. If they don't specify, make sure you send a Word file or maybe a PDF file, something like that. Don't send it as an image, meaning you scanned it in and it's like or you took a screenshot of it and sent it in. That's not very professional. So you want to make sure that you can email it in or upload it into one of their systems. And make sure before you send it that you file the instructions correctly, that you do everything that you're supposed to, and then should you tweak your resume to add any certain keywords or skills necessary. So typically at this point, I would ask for questions. But again, if you have any needs, I'm at the Mondawmin Workforce Center on the 3rd floor. I've got a crew of people there that can help you out with your resumes. We're there to help people with backgrounds, with training and employment and other types of skills and opportunities. And so thank you for your time tonight. I look forward to talking to you in the future.